All right, Dave McKinney here from GatewayMMA.com, and we're in with a special guest tonight, one of Northeast Ohio's own, current UFC fighter, Donny Eagle Eye Walker, will be stepping into the cage this Saturday at UFC Fight Night 25 against Ken Stone. So first off, how you doing tonight, Donny?
I'm doing good, actually. I'm up here in New Orleans getting ready to, pretty much losing weight all week. So I'm just, keep training 2 or 3 times a day with Jason and go from there.
All right, so just to start off, I know, the hot topic now is everybody's talking about The Ultimate Fighter. I know that you actually tried out for The Ultimate Fighter, and it was interesting because you didn't make the show, but you went right into the UFC, along with the guy you fought in your last fight, who I also believe tried out for the show. Can you talk a little bit about, going the tough route versus going straight to the UFC, being on the prelims versus being on the tough cards? Can you just talk a little bit about the difference there?
I'm blessed. At least I made it to the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter tryouts. I thought they went pretty good. I actually got pretty far. I'm not allowed to say how far I got, but I got really far. And, that was okay with me. And pretty much Jason said, hey, keep training, keep pushing. You'll get that call sooner or later. And then, a month and a half later, I get the call. The UFC said, hey, you already have your medicals done. Can you make weight next week, to fight so-and-so? I'm like, heck yeah. So, I just seized the opportunity and went from there. And in the end, you're just trying to get into the UFC to fight. And some of those guys for the Ultimate Fighter, we get a chance to fight for the UFC besides on the show. They get cut right away. So I've kind of made it a little further now than most do.
Right, so let's talk about your UFC debut. Obviously, you lost a unanimous decision at UFC 132 to Jeff Hugland. Going into that fight, I know everybody always talks about the octagon jitters, the adrenaline dump, and it seems like almost in the first round, even though it was a close round, were there any, was there any nervousness or jitters or anything like that, or an adrenaline dump going into that fight?
I didn't think so. I think maybe a little adrenaline dump, but it's mostly excitedness. Like, I was just excited to be there. And when that first round was called, I really thought to myself, wow, I can't believe I'm in the UFC. And then I started to, usually, I usually pick it up towards the end of the round, usually. So that third round, I won, I thought, unanimously. And from there, that's just what I think. I think I learned from my mistakes pretty much.
Right, so going into that fight and now coming into your next fight, obviously you talked about that was basically, at the drop of a hat, you kind of had to be ready to make weight and everything. Now going into this fight, I know you've probably had a full camp, you've had a couple of months since your last fight. Is there? I'm sure there's a different, outlook going into the fight. Can you just talk a little bit about how it's different going into this fight?
Oh yeah, it's way different. I've actually been able to watch footage on my guy this time. The last time I didn't have any footage on the guy against Jeff Hogland. This time though, Ken Stone, he's from American Top Team. We were able to research him. We were able to, pretty much build practice around that. Knowing that he's a southpaw, knowing that he's a wrestler. There's a lot of information on him since he fought in the WEC and the UFC. So
right.
We just built on that.
Right, so you mentioned Ken Stone. He obviously has fought in the WEC and has fought in the UFC. Both of his losses, I believe, are by knockout. Are you planning on coming out and striking in this fight? Obviously, because he is a wrestler. Going up against a southpaw that might work with, that might play into, throwing straight right hands and hooks. Is that your game plan in this fight to strike?
Yeah, the game plan is to go out there. I'm just going to give it everything I got this time, unlike last time. I think, I started to show my true self at the end of the third round of my last fight. This fight, you're definitely going to see a different Donny Walker from first round to the, last round, if it goes that far. Everyone's saying that he has a glass chin. Well, look who's beat him, Eddie Wineland and Scott Ferguson. So I think, he does have that in the back of his mind that he's been knocked out twice, so I'm just going to try and capitalize on it, definitely.
Right, and another interesting thing I wanted to talk about is I actually just recently rewatched the fight with Jeff Hogland, and a thing that, really didn't surprise me, but a thing that stuck out to me was how great of a corner Jason Dent is. Obviously he's a guy who's been there and done that. a UFC veteran himself. Can you just talk a little bit about having Jason in your corner and being such a great game planner and technical fighter?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he definitely helps us all out. Just being that he's been in the UFC, a handful of times, plus the Ultimate Fighter. Just his experience. Not only that, I mean, he's truly passionate about the sport, so that helps. I mean, you can have anybody work up a good game plan, but when you got somebody that passionate about the sport, since we were like 13 or 14, because we go back that far as friends, you got to have that, burning, inside you that want to make your fighter better. I mean, he does that for all of us.
Right, so that is something that I really a lot of corners will just be yelling out punch the guy or whatever, but Jason actually gives you sort of technical advice. Is that something that obviously everybody wants different things from their corners, but is that something that you want from your corners, technical advice and almost like a head coach on the sidelines looking at and seeing where you're at?
Oh, definitely. It all depends on the fighter. Me being that Jason's been a fighter, he's been in those positions, and since I'm comfortable fighting, I can actually, pause in the fight, or I can actually listen to what he's saying. And, 99.9% of the time, it's the right choice to make. That's why, I went on that 7-fight win streak, is because of him.
Right, and coming into the UFC, obviously you were NAAFS featherweight champ, and you had been on a 7-fight winning streak. But facing facts and once you get to the UFC, it doesn't really matter what you've done before the UFC. You have to keep winning. Is there any pressure in this fight? Since you lost your first fight, you probably. There's a good chance that you might get the pink slip if you lose this one. Is there any pressure going into this fight, or is that just something that you're totally focused on the fight and not even thinking about that?
Yeah, I'm focused just on this fight. I mean, everything's going to happen for a reason. If I go in there and win, cool. I'm all for that. And I try not to plan ahead of time, because if I lose, I'm going to be bumped out. I'll come back locally and fight for the NAFs or fight for some of the other local organizations and hopefully go back to the UFC. But I plan on winning this one, so should make a difference either way.
Right, I hate to bring that up, but it's kind of interesting to me just what a fighter's mindset is. A lot of guys will not even want to think about it, and obviously it's something that's there, and you want to win every fight. So it's not like you want to win. It's not like you want to lose a fight. So I just like hearing what your exact mindset is going into it, and I think that having the mindset of, hey, whatever happens, but you're going to go out there and fight your best is a really great mindset to have going in there. Obviously we talked a little bit about your game plan, and this seems like, I don't want to downplay him because there aren't any easy fights in the UFC, but it seems like a guy that, you could beat, and I'm not, there's, obviously you're in the UFC because you could probably beat anybody in the UFC, but do you have a prediction on how this fight's going to go?
I really do. I mean, I usually do good against southpaws and wrestlers, so I really do see myself rocking it really good, submitting them. I'm hoping for the knockout because I haven't had a clean knockout, but, a win's a win in my mind, so whatever way it's going to take, I'm going to win and come home with that win. All
right, man, that's all I got for you. So, good luck on Saturday. Hopefully bring home the win back to Ohio.
I appreciate it, man.